today we're going to talk about z-scores. Super easy concept. A z-score is the number, this is the definition of it, the number of standard deviations away from the mean. Okay, so last week when we were actually drawing the entire normal curve, and we were drawing 0.5 standard deviations, 1 standard deviation, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. Those are kind of like the z-scores of where you are on that curve. Okay, so a z-score is the number of standard deviations away from the mean. In order for you to do this, though, it must be a normal distribution. Must be a normal distribution where the z-score of the mean is 0, okay? Which makes sense because, again, z-score is the number of standard deviations away from the mean. The mean is on the mean, so it's 0 away from the mean. It's a little weird, but makes sense. Third bullet, I want you to write that if you have a positive z-score means that you are above the mean, or if you want to refer back to the actual curve, you are on the right of the mean. Okay. Whereas if you have a negative z-score, that is below the mean. When I say above and below, for example, if the average is, let's say we're talking about a test, and the average is, or the mean is an 80, and your z-score is positive, that means that you got higher than an 80. Whereas if you have a negative z-score, you're below the mean, which is, again, something below an 80. So you're below the mean, which is to the left on your normal curve. And the last thing that I want you to write, you're going to see more of this on Wednesday, but z-scores are used to calculate the probabilities, also referred to as the percentages, or the area, or areas if you want, under the curve. So what you were doing last week, there we go, how you were doing everything by hand, you were drawing the entire normal curve. I'm going to show you on Wednesday how you can do that in the calculator, okay? But the reason why I have you do it by hand first is so that you can kind of understand what the calculator is figuring out for you, all right? There is a formula to find the z-scores. The formula is that the z-score is equal to find the z-score, you would take the value of whatever it is that you're asking, the value minus the mean, divided by the standard deviation. I know the value probably sounds a little bit confusing right now. I'll explain that in a second. Let me get this formula working though. There we go. That's how it should look. The value minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. Okay? So, again, it might sound a little confusing until you actually see an example. So, number 1, you take the SAT exam and you earned an 1100. The mean grade for the SAT was a 1026, and the standard deviation is 209. What's the z-score for your SAT grade? Meaning, if you were to go ahead and go all out and figure out this entire curve, so again, you would do the mean, and then you would do all of the half standard deviations, where are you? So if the mean is a 1026 and you earned an 1100, your z-score should be positive because your grade is higher than the mean. You are above the mean, you are on the right, which is a positive z-score. So to actually figure this out, you're going to write z-score equals the value in this case, the grade. So the one that this is what's going to change depending upon where you are on the curve. You're talking about a grade of 1100. So that's your value. So we have 1100 minus the mean is 1026 divided by the standard deviation is 209. That you can type directly into the calculator, and your z-score, you have to write the whole thing out. Your z-score is 0.354, 354,066,9856. And that's it. So you are somewhere right here. You're really close to the mean. Okay? You're less than a half standard deviation away. Number 2, the prices of the iPhone X in a store have a mean of $900 with a standard deviation of 50. The iPhone X that you purchased costs you $820. So again, you're below the mean. So because you're below the mean, you should get a negative z-score. How many standard deviations away from the mean is your price of the iPhone X? So how many standard deviations away? That's the definition of a z-score. So it's not like explicitly asking you for the z-score, but it is because it's asking you it using its definition, if that makes sense. Okay, so you're going to do z-score equals so the value, if you have trouble figuring out what the value is, plug the other stuff in first because the mean, it'll tell you what the mean is. The standard deviation, it will also tell you. You're looking for a phone costing $820. So that's your value, okay? So when you plug that into your calculator, 820 minus 900 divided by 50, you should get negative 1.6 standard deviations away. So again, if this is your curve, this is your average or your mean, you're somewhere over here to the left. Negative 1.6 standard deviations away. And then the last question, a little different because if you read the question, it says if a z-score has the value of 3.4. So it's giving you the z-score and it wants the corresponding grade, okay? Standardized test scores are normally distributed. The data set of test scores has a mean of 240 with a standard deviation of 25. It gives you the z-score. It wants to know what grade corresponds with that. So if you're 3.4 standard deviations away, what is the grade that person had received? So you can still use the formula for this. But instead of writing z-score equals and plugging everything in on the right, you know that the z-score is 3.4 equals. You're looking for the value that corresponds with that z-score. So value minus the mean is 240 divided by the z-score is 25. Okay? Again, for some reason, we don't know how to solve this until I do that. Okay? Cross multiply. 3.4 times 25 is 85 equals value minus 240. Add 240 to the other side. And you get the value equals a 325. Or if you prefer writing that the test score instead of value is a 325. Okay? So in order for you to be 3.4 standard deviations away, you would get a test score of 325. Okay? Which 3.4 standard deviations away is very far to the right. Right? We only go out 3 standard deviations. So a 3.4 is in that greater than 0.1% range. Okay? It's very high up there. Okay, so your homework tomorrow is going to be a worksheet, a few questions based on this, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper on Wednesday. Okay? Have a great day.